Interview Thursday. We got like 6 speakers today. We got quite a few. So Eddie L, could you highlight Mia, Jimmy, Matt, Anthony, Aaron, Francis? Mia, Jimmy, you're going to help me with this to make sure I got everybody. We need Matt Obringer. We need Aragon. There he is.
There he is.
Sorry, guys. Just give us
I don't see Aaron.
Strider. Mia, can you ask or can you get her on here?
Am I missing anyone else?
Anthony
Anthony.
on Jimmy's squad. Let's do. You want to do Francis as well, correct, Mia?
Yeah, Francis. Right.
Okay, Francis. There he is. Anthony, can we go? Can you go by Tony? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Tony. I like Tony. For any Seinfeld fans out there. All right. Well, Aaron will pop in here in a minute. So, me and Mia were talking. We thought this might be kind of a cool way to start this interview Thursday out since there's so many speakers. Let's kick off with, so once again, to reiterate, I'm going to give my argument on why contests are so important. Like, if you come to my VIP meetings and these kind of things, there's a talk I do about casting vision. And one of the things Mia, she had a great question for me, but it's like, what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from competing or a competition? And that talk that I give, that's about baseline levels of capabilities, that was like the biggest lesson I've learned, that when you have like a skill set or something you're trying to improve on, and for me being successful here, I didn't want to look for any other jobs. You guys have heard me rant about this. If I'm serious about making real 6 figures, 200, 250 plus a year, I have less than a 3% chance of doing it anywhere else. I got to make it happen here. So I need to get better at this job. And competitions, they set an environment, a mentality, kind of like, I'd say like collectively as a community, like the enthusiasm that surrounds it. It's such a prime situation for you to apply 20 to 30% more effort, something McFoy talks about too, 20 to 30% more effort to your daily work. And what subconsciously happens, you start learning, like, let's say I'm a 5 out of 10 at this job. I pushed myself that extra 20, 30% for the month of March doing the competition. I now learn what it takes to be a 7 out of 10, an 8 out of 10. I see what kind of workload, effort level, all the things that go on to that level of professional. And now for the next 60 days, I can work to become that individual. So that's why I feel like competitions can be so important to professionals, athletes, I would also argue children, because it puts you in a position to push yourself harder than you have before. And typically subconsciously, I feel like your brain is establishing how to now become that person, how to become the next version of yourself. So that's why I think like a lot of you guys, especially if you're new, really diving into these competitions and trying to push yourself, you will be exhausted. Becoming great is an exhausting process. But what your brain is doing in the end, it's learning how to become that more advanced version of yourself. And I think that's indispensable, especially for personal development. But me, I appreciated you throwing that question my way, because thinking about it's like, yeah, man, that's where I learned that lesson. Like, dude, you want to capitalize on comps and any opportunity where you can increase your skill set, because then your brain's going to learn how to become that better version, But let's do the rest of the question too. I want to know, and each of you guys can just take a second, give me your biggest lesson, or simple, the biggest amount of money you've ever made in a month, or even like the best prize or anything you've bought from prize money after a contest. Let's just open it up with that. So Mia, why don't you start, since this is a question you kind of came up with that I love. Would you mind starting?
Yeah, I've had so many, as I have a lot of experience. I've been with the company for 11 years, and I've had so many prizes. I've had MacBook Pros and iPads and Louis Vuitton shoes and Louis Vuitton bags and trips and dinners and so in money, so many prizes. I think I've earned a lot of money. Like the most amount of money I've ever earned in a contest month was probably about $27,000. And you would think that would be like my favorite prize. But it's actually been like the dinners and the trips, spending time and rubbing shoulders and getting to know like people who were going where I was going, thinking what I was thinking, or who was beyond me, spending time with like my SGAs and different things like that. Like spending those times and taking those trips has been my favorite prize. so far.
I think lessons, money, and experiences are the big three, yeah? So usually
Mhm.
it revolves around those three, so it's good. Does anyone else want to answer that? I know it's a random question, but I'm just curious. Most amount of money. I can kind of speak for, so I never won a crazy amount of contests. I was always third or second place. But my sister won one of our World Cups, and she walked away with $57,000 one month in winnings. And it was like super exciting. So it was like her third month on the job, and she had all this debt. But it was like $20,000 pot, plus she wrote a ton of business. So I take credit for that, because if it wasn't for me, she wouldn't be in the business, right? So I take credit for that. Does anyone else got something that they wanted to share?
I can answer.
Go for it, Matt.
So the prize that I liked most wasn't a prize of the company. It was just we did really well. This was originally back in State College with our push originally to get Jimmy promoted to an MGA. We came down that we needed like 75,000 in a week to hit the number that they gave us. We ended up doing like 87.
Dang.
And
Guys, that would put them in like the top Jimmy of SGA bodies right there. 87,000 in a week. What is that? That would be like the top 15 SGAs in the entire company. Right? So impressive. So I just want to throw it out there. Yeah.
And this was a GA deal at the time. And so what I was able to do was put a down payment on essentially like my dream car, which was an Audi, and got to search around, had a little extra time, ended up taking a road trip with my mom because I specifically wanted a 6-speed. So got to do like a nice trip with my mom, pick up a 6-speed, and I still own that car. I have it completely paid off. I absolutely love it to death. And then the most money I've made actually was with Anthony. We were on a very small team 2 years ago. In March Madness, made just over 50,000 with me
Nice.
and another gentleman.
Very good, dude. Very good. I'm getting a little anxious that I probably have to throw out more cash money and trips now, because everyone's saying all these, like, maybe I'm going to regret this. Aaron or Francis or Anthony or Jimmy, what do you guys got?
I think mine kind of falls into Mia's experience type category. We did a in-agency March Madness. It's like my second month to VIP. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but Mia was like, hey, if you come in for the hours we said, and you push really, really hard, you stick to the systems, you rely on your activity and everything, you can make it. You will make it. So I ended up winning our in-agency March Madness. Mia flew me down to Georgia. We went to a Braves game. We went out to dinner. It's a really great time. We actually get to mingle with some of the other Georgia SGAs and agencies and everything like that there. Some people from NIL as well, I think, were there.
No, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a really
So like New York, Mia, or like Liberty National?
maybe Liberty National.
Liberty National, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a really great time. Got to meet a lot of people, networking. And then of course meet my SGA in the flesh since we work it's entirely virtually.
It's so much different meeting people in person when it's all virtual every day, isn't it? It's a weird, it's a rewarding but awkward experience.
It's like, wow, okay, real people. I work with real people. It's nice to see that little connection in person. So
It's great. That's great. One of you guys want to share something? We can also do biggest lesson if anyone's got like a lesson. I think that's very valuable too. Jimmy, you got something?
I definitely have something, because convention this year is in Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with the company for 8 years almost now. I've been to 5 conventions, and I remember my second convention was in Vegas, and this was when I was really pushing production for the company, or the agency March Madness at the time. And how it was set up, there was cash prizes that were set up for every single round, and I made it to the finals. So during that year, I made like 3,000 or 4,000 just from like cash prizes throughout the contest. And right after, in April was when we all went out to Vegas for convention. So I just had some extra cash, and one thing I always wanted to do was just rent a supercar and just rip it around the desert.
Hey,
so rented out a Lamborghini, just ripped it around the Hoover Dam, just had some fun with some guys on the team. And man, like that's something I'll never, ever forget.
That's
and
sweet.
That's just from contest money, just from doing my job. So a lot of you guys are going out, hopefully that's your goal, is to go to convention this year. That's one thing that you guys can look forward to, absolutely. Because that was
love it, dude.
One of the times of my life.
That's great.
Sure.
No, I love that for sure. That's great. We're in the Hoover Dam. I'm like not actually on the dam, correct?
It was pretty far. I had to drive like 3 hours to get there.
Got it.
Yeah, it was pretty far.
That's sweet.
I almost ran out of gas.
Lamborghini, I would assume. Anyone else got something they want to throw in?
My favorite prize I got was, I think, my second or third year. I was doing the March Madness, and there was a couple hundred agents involved, and I made it to the Final Four. Didn't win, but I still have the hoodie. It's got a basketball hoop, and it says Final Four, and, you know, I was really proud to get that far. I didn't win, but it's not a Lamborghini or wasn't $50,000. I obviously made a lot of money that month, but that hoodie means a lot to me, and I still wear it, and I just know you know, how hard I had to work to achieve that. So of course I made a lot of money, but the hoodie's like what I really cherish. You know, it's starting to fade now. That was like 10 years ago, but I love it.
Good. Francis, you got one you want to throw in, and then we'll move on?
Mine would just mostly be a lesson. I think that's one of the biggest prizes you can win. I was in a March Madness competition my first year with Mia, and I made it to the finals. And the fact that I was able to even make it that far, like, I really surprised myself because I realized what I was capable of. And that was a huge lesson to learn, that you know, you always see all these names. Every week we do recognition, not just during contests, but you see all these names and how much they're able to write. And sometimes you might not think that you're capable of that, but pushing yourself to the point where you realize that you actually are capable of doing those things, I think was like one of the biggest lessons, and I think biggest prize that I ever won.
Francis, I love that. I always, before I joined this, I always felt like when I saw successful people, and this is back in my 20s, I felt like I was like outside a house and I was like looking into the successful people, and American Income kind of showed me, it's like, no, dude, the door to that house is open. You just actually need to walk into it kind of idea. It's like, you are capable. You can be one of these people. You just need to take the effort. So I love that. I think that's great. So let's open up. To be honest, guys, with 6 of us, I don't know if we all need to answer every question, but this is one that I would like all of you to answer, because I think this is important, because I think subjectively people are all going to have a different experience or answer to this. So I want to talk about sacrifice, your definition of sacrifice, and why you feel it's an essential variable to success, as in like entrepreneurs, athletes, professionals we all admire, like they all talk about sacrifice breeding opportunity, sacrifice being one of the essential ingredients in the equation. So it's like, what is your definition and why do you feel it's so essential? Let's start, Mia, is it okay if we start with you again, Mia? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
let's go to
fine.
you. Yeah.
So I was just thinking about this, and what I wrote was that sacrifice is an investment, right? It's an investment. An investment is when you put something in and you get a return.
Yep.
And when it's time to sacrifice, like there's time for sacrifice, there's time to do this deep investing. It's like a huge investment. You have to be able to just zone out and focus on the end game. Okay. There's times where, yeah, we want to be present and we want to be in the moment. We want to focus on the moment and we want to love the process, right? Fall in love with the process. But when you're talking about a contest month, it's like, we did the process. We did everything. It's like, I see my target. Now I'm going to hit my target. So I'm going to make all the investment that I need to make. Nothing else matters but me hitting this target. That is just the way I look at it.
I love that. We just did a talk with a couple of groups of our agents. Investment by definition, you're going to experience a loss. You're going to invest as in pay money, sweat equity. So I love that idea. And it's also, I would argue, a positive way to look at sacrifice as an investment. You will experience a return. I think that's spectacular. Sorry guys, I know I'm kind of steamrolling the conversation, but Mia, your definition there is similar to how I feel. It's like, I think loss in life is always going to occur. It's part of life. Sacrifice is like the conscious decision to have that loss. You know that loss is coming. You are consciously making the decision to experience that loss or investment. So I think that's absolutely spectacular. Jimmy, why don't you?
Yeah, sweet. So yeah, great answer, Mia. You know, when I thought about this answer, I thought of baseball. You know, I thought of a sacrifice bunt, right? Any baseball fans in here, or anybody know baseball?
I think a lot of us have lives, so probably not, but yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, when you bunt, if you're hitting and you're a batter and you have a sacrifice bunt, you're bunting the ball so the runner on first base could then advance to second base, and it means that you're going to get out. But it's a sacrifice for the team, right? So when you bunt and you get out, that's fine. You have a runner in scoring position. So that's kind of how I thought about it. It's doing something that I don't want to do maybe, but for somebody else. And as a 36-year-old now, my definition of sacrifice is a little bit different than when I was in my young 20s, right? So when I think of sacrifice, I think of my children. I think of the things that I'm doing for them. I think of the person I'm becoming, for them. And I just think my definition of sacrifice has changed over the years. When I was in my young 20s, I would always work Saturdays and go out into the field, and I would skip Penn State football games because they were on at 12. I'm a big Penn State fan. And I'm in the field at 12 o'clock. I'm sacrificing a football game. Well, that might not mean, that's like no big deal, right? It's like, wow, you're missing a football game. So I think everybody's definition might be a little bit different throughout their lives, but I just think, when I think of sacrifice, it's about me choosing to not do something for the benefit of somebody else. And it's also yourself as well. If you're sacrificing sleep at night, you're going to be tired the next day. If you're eating junk food, you're sacrificing your health. So it's not only like just for yourself or other people. So I just think it's important that it's kind of relative, and our definitions change over time, I think.
I love that, dude. It's kind of a fluid concept. I think Kevin O'Leary, from Shark Tank and all that, like the big business dude, he had a quote that stuck with me where if you're not an entrepreneur until you've made somebody else money. And it's like, I kind of like that little definition where it's like, yeah, dude, if you're really going to sacrifice or be successful, there is going to be the variable of what have you done for other people is typically what it's going to be. So I think that's great. Aaron, Aragon, daughter of Arathon, talk to me.
I knew it was coming.
I'll stop. That's the only time I'm going to do it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I really think this is a phenomenal question. My definition of sacrifice would be relinquishing something of value in search of the greater good. Something of value can take lots of shapes and sizes. It could be a quality time with your family. It could be money if you're investing to like a call center or recruiting, whatever it is. It could be a hobby or a pastime, like Jimmy was saying. So I believe sacrifice to be crucial to success, because how will you ever make room for the bounty of success if you don't get rid of something first?
I love that. Very good. I like that a lot. That's a good one. Francis, good luck following that up, dude.
I know she's tough shoes to fill. It really goes along with what both Mia and Aaron are saying. It is an investment. For me, I have 3 children, and when I first started this business, they were quite young, and I had to sacrifice a lot of time with them. I'm not going to be tucking them in at night, and I'm not going to be there giving them the kisses and reading them the bedtime stories. But because I sacrificed that time, I'm able to invest my time elsewhere to provide financial gain that will allow us to create even bigger memories. It's great to have mom tucking you in every night, but I bet you that they'll probably remember that, but they'll probably remember more the time we were able to go to Busch Gardens, or that one time that we were able to go out and our whole family was with us and we all had hibachi and mom footed the bill. So those sacrifices that you make are investments in bigger things that you can provide for your family.
Francis, I love that answer. So for me, it's exactly how I coach my kids, because it is interesting when I look back as a kid, my mom may have put me down every night and I don't remember one of the times. But the one time that we went to Mexico, I remember it was an amazing vacation. I remember that like it was yesterday. It's such an interesting way that my brain or whatever, but I feel like a lot of people are that way. So like I sacrifice a lot of time with my kids at night too, but it's like, I know if they're anything like me, they're probably not going to remember the things that I did habitually anyway. But these big experiences and events that you could argue are borderline life-changing, they're going to remember that until the day they die. So I agree with that. I think that's a great way to look at it. Tony, give us something.
Well, I think honestly, when people look at the word sacrifice, it's, it's non-sexy to a lot of people, or it's very like, intimidating, right? So I try to make, sacrifice sexy again. What I mean by that is like making it, as like a promise to yourself. That makes sense, right? Because when you do it like for you, it pushes you. It doesn't really necessarily put it in the mindset of like being a sacrifice, right? It's more like everyone else was talking about, more an investment for yourself for the greater good to have a greater result in the end, right? So like when we're on push months and things like that, like, yes, you might be working a little bit more, but, on push months, that's when I personally had my biggest months, right? And a lot of people on the screen could probably testify for the same exact thing, So, that's like what my perspective of the sacrifice is, really like making a promise to yourself about what you're going to do and then following it up and following through with it and not letting anything else like, a Friday night or, anything like that is going to get in the way of you, having that in the end, so that's personally what my definition of sacrifice is. Cause like, I just remember growing up in the business, I was 19 years old, dropping out of college. Right. And like, I've had my college buddies, cause I did go to school for 1 year. I had my college buddies like hitting me up about wanting to go out. I lived in Pennsylvania. My family's from New York. So my family wanted to like hang out all the time, like every other month. And I'm like, I can't, but now, now it all makes sense to them because now we're getting like $2, $3, sometimes $4,000 a month in residual income because of the sacrifices, quote unquote, the sacrifices and the promises I made to myself for what I was going to do when I first came in the business. So, I mean, that's what my definition of sacrifice would be, in my perspective.
Make sacrifice sexy again. A little political, but I like it. I do like it. All right, Matt, bring us home, dude.
I don't know, man. I think all my answers got stolen. But, no,
When we jumped on the call, they all did say they were going to steal some of your answers. So yeah, I'm going to have
fine.
you.
I'm cool with it. That's sacrifice itself.
Yeah, it's sacrifices.
No, I sacrifice always been kind of like a hot button word for me because I don't really agree with it, definitionally. And I don't agree a lot of times what we do is sacrifice. I think most important is perspective and kind of the opportunity. Because yeah, you're giving something up, but for what? And it's something where it's like, well, I'm giving up for my team. And it's like, well, if you didn't want to invest in your team, then it is a sacrifice. But if you wanted to see your people do well, you wanted your team to do well, it's not really a sacrifice. It's delayed gratification. It's the same thing like, yeah, like going to the gym, quote unquote, is a sacrifice, but not when you're dedicated to it and you get the results, or, putting that extra time in can be considered a sacrifice, but not when you keep that mindset of what you're doing it for. And I think that's the most important thing is, a lot of times, like, it's going to be, difficult or frustrating to keep that perspective and not, necessarily feel like you're giving something up, but you're kind of giving yourself an opportunity to, do something you've never done before. Especially just in experience and in knowledge, like some of the biggest weeks I've ever had, or, basically realized I was capable of doing something I had no idea I was capable of. And I wouldn't consider that a sacrifice. I would even say, like, not that I did make money at that point, but just the knowledge gained of that and the personal growth was worth it just in and of itself. And I'm not saying don't do it without making money. No, like, not at all. But, just that perspective where kind of framing it like more than anything, what you're doing is investing. And that's, I agree 100%, with Mia, like that stuck out. And then someone, I think it was Jasmine in the chat, said like, sacrifice is perspective or prioritization. Like, it is like, it's a sacrifice if you make it a sacrifice, but if you treat it as an investment and you treat it as, something that's going to better you, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It feels like you're just building towards something.
Mhm.
I think I love that too, dude. It's we did a talk I forget when it was a while back, but we talked about when you say sacrifice or like cost, expand the timeline. And it's interesting if you expand that timeline, all of a sudden, initially when it seemed like a cost or a sacrifice, your ROI, return on that investment, was 5 times the size of the original viewed sacrifice. So it's like, yeah, I like the deferred gratification is a great way to put it. It's like, yeah, it seems like a sacrifice, but expand that timeline. When you get that return, it's not. The lesson, the money, the whatever gained. I think that's a great way of looking at it. So beautiful kickoff, guys. I really like the answers. Let's move to more contest based now. We're going to start with an easy one. The most important ingredient to winning a sales contest. And I want to define winning. I don't mean winning like you win all the money, you win whatever. I mean where you leave that contest and you feel good. So like, I remember, sorry, I'm making a personal story, but you guys know what the Spartan races were? I don't know if they're still going on.
They are.
Oh, dude. So I trained pretty hard for that. made a really bad mistake of going out with my buddies the night before. Okay. So I was not in the best state to be doing my marathon. Sorry, just reality. And I'm right at the finish line, dude. And no joke, if you ever meet my wife, she makes fun of my weak ankles. A pebble about the size of this at the finish line. I ran over that thing and I like crumbled to the ground and legitimately was like crawling to the finish line. One of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But I didn't win. I'll leave it at that. I definitely didn't win and I embarrassed myself. But dude, I felt so rewarded by finishing that race. It's like the sense of winning wasn't like actually walking away with making the podium. It was like, dude, like all of that. I was kind of proud of myself for going out the night before and then crawling to the finish line. That's what I mean by winning. You come out of that event feeling good. Like, and we've all had events and contests or whatever where it's like, we just don't really feel good about our performance. We don't feel like we gave it our all. We don't feel like whatever. What are some of the most important ingredients for coming out of those contests, races, whatever, where you feel good? You feel like you won during that time. Does that make sense? That's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay. Jimmy, why don't you kick us off this time?
Perfect. So a plan that you have and a plan that you execute. So I've done plenty of contest months, push weeks, push months at the beginning of my career where I was like, all right, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to crush it. And I just run as fast as I can, as hard as I can. And I'm pretty much just running blind. And I just didn't get the satisfaction out of it because I wasn't really like keeping score. So what I mean is get with your leader on this. But if we're talking about March Madness, right? Push month, just for this example, it's like, how much production do you want to write? Well, how many sales is that going to take? Well, how many appointments or how many sits is that going to take to get those sets? Then how many appointments are you going to need to have that many presentations? How many calls is it going to take to get that many appointments? And you have those goals, that data, and you just focus on that. And then this business is all math, right? We got to remember to remove our feelings. I kind of talked about that on Monday, one of the many numbers that I went over, Andrew, right? But remove your feelings. Have a plan and execute the plan and don't just say, I'm going to go get it. You're kind of like running blindly, right? So get with your leader on that. And I think that's one of the most important ingredients because then you're focused on the amount of dials you need to get the amount of presentations, which the end result is going to be that production. In our business, we got to remember to kind of manage the process, not manage the end result. You want to go write 20,000 for the month? Great. What's the process behind that, right? So that's my answer.
I think have a playbook, right? Is kind of the answer to that, right? It's like, what's your playbook, man? What's the actual strat for the victory? I think that's a crucial. You shouldn't be doing this during a contest. You should know what the strategy is, what the playbook is. I love that. Who else wants to take a stab at that? I don't know if we'll have time for everyone to answer every question. So who's got a stab at that one? Matt, go for it.
I would say the big thing too is while ALP, end of the day, that's usually what contests are going to be focused on and stuff like that. And that's awesome. And the thing to make sure, win or lose, you feel like you've accomplished something is to also have goals for things that, while you do have control over your ALP, you don't have as much control over it as you do other metrics. You can sit down with people who are uninsurable. You can sit down and just have a binge string of luck. But you have control over how many sits you get. You have control over how many phone calls you make. And to make sure that you have those as well, because you also don't have as much control over who the person you're against is going to write.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do a great job, make sure that you have things that you take away that you're going to feel proud of regardless, and to not just be focused on that one result. If you go out and crush 35,000, 45,000 a month, you should feel accomplished whether you win or not. And if you're setting things like, I'm going to sit down with 100 people, I've only ever sat down with 65, you should feel accomplished regardless.
I love that, dude. I love that. That's kind of like perspective argument. Yeah. Having perspective on what the win is for you personally. I like that a lot. Let's get one more. Does anyone else want to jump on that? What's an important ingredient to winning a contest? Aaron, let it rip.
I know a lot of what I'm going to say kind of goes off of what Jimmy said as well. Just making sure that you do have a very clear and structured plan. Kind of goes with that quote that says a goal without a plan is just a wish. But in terms of feeling like you've won the month, even though you haven't won the contest, I feel like it's very important that you make sure that you did better in that month than you have previously. So maybe I didn't write like the $200,000 I needed to write to win the home office's, contest. But maybe I wrote the $40,000 that I needed to beat my best push month. So I feel like I have won the month in myself. Maybe my team has written more than they ever have in a single month. My whole team won. I can relish that fact that we won as a collective, as opposed to maybe we didn't beat the best of the best, but we beat our best self, and that's what really matters.
I think tactical wins, like those little wins you get every day, are actually more valuable than some of these monumentous being number one, yada yada. So I love that answer too. Is like, yeah, man, the tactical wins are actually what builds momentum. Those big ones can build and take away momentum just as powerful. So I love that. Let's move on to another question. This is, I didn't word this question great for you guys, but I think you guys get the concept. Is during contest months, there is the need for like a deeper form of energy. Like you got to dig deep, or like those cliches that people say, right? For me, like when I say digging deep, it typically came to, I gave you guys some examples, like Mia, you brought this up and I love it. Like, contests are not a time for practice. We did all the practice. Now it's time to apply the skill sets. You know what I mean? Another one would be like, I think one for me was boundaries. Like, you have a social circle, you have whatever. It's like, have you created those boundaries so you can have a little bit more focus on what you're trying to do? So what are some like tactics, ideas, or just how can you get someone coached up on the idea of digging deeper than a typical level of motivation? Does that kind of make sense? Like, is there any tips for a new person? Like, how can they go that one layer deeper to bring that little extra sweat equity, enthusiasm? March Madness can be like a month long. It can be tough to go 4 straight weeks of like pushing. Like, what kind of tips or mentalities you guys got that might that might help a new person kind of dive into this?
I'll definitely start.
Go for it, Mia.
I would say definitely, if you haven't already, starting out like today. So you definitely need a clear and concise goal. A good way to start with your goal is kind of like decide how much you want in your bank account. Like how much do you want to earn in this push month, right? And then walk it backwards. So if I want to earn X amount of money, then how much production do I have to write? Safe bet, times that by 2.5, right? That's how much production I need to write that month. Well, how do I write that production? How what is my average? If you've been here a while, get with your manager, look at the actual real data and see what is your average ALP per deal is. If you haven't, just take the company's average. Our training processes and the systems and our resources will be pretty accurate around the company average for you. So there's a formula and a system to do that. So now you have your number, how much you want to earn. You have a plan now because you know how many phone calls you need to make, you know how many presentations you need to do, because you're going to walk it back. I have a whole system and formula for this. I don't have time to tell you guys now, but if you want it, I can send it out. And then once you have that, you need to get the buy-in of every single person that is important to you, your spouse, your kids, your significant other, like everybody, the family, anybody who can come and help and support. And they need to understand what their role needs to be during this time and what their reward is. Let them pick their own reward. You picked your reward, what you wanted to earn. Let them pick their reward. That's what I used to do with my son. My son was 10 when I started this company. So every March Madness, every Rocktober, every Jump January, I'd say, what do you want this month? And he would tell me, and we would break it down into ALP. And so if I hit my certain number, he would get that thing too. But that meant I cannot be going up to the school for school conferences or getting emails that you didn't do your homework, or coming in and there's still trash and we missed the trash pickup, etc. So have a plan, talk to your family, and get everybody involved in it. And stay focused. Don't go to barbecues and different things that you don't have to go to. Just let everybody know this is my zone in month. I'm sorry, we can do it next month. That's all I got.
I love it, dude. I want to give a piece of advice to everybody too. If you make a promise to a child of what they're going to get if you hit that number, you better come through on that promise, or they hold you to that for the rest of your life. So yeah, I love that. But that's kind of like, know the playbook, man. Do you have a playbook for March? Do you have a playbook for how you're going to win this comp? And I would also argue like the boundaries with that playbook. You have to draw those boundaries so everyone knows. So I think that's a perfect answer. Who else wants to take a stab at that? How can you dig a little bit deeper than typical motivation to have a successful contest? Francis, let her rip.
So I think it's really important to tap into your why. Why are you doing this? I mean, we're all here to make money. And if you're not here to make money, I don't know what you're doing here. But everybody has a why. And that why is usually deeper than just making money. The money is the vehicle to make that why happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a why, you don't have anything deeper to tap into. So when you're down in the dumps and you've heard the no's and you've failed yourself, and you can't get to where you wanted to be, that why should be what should pull you out of that to make you realize that, hey, I need to step up. I need to hold myself accountable so that I can reach this why. For me, it's always my family. I want to make sure that my family has, everything that they need, that we're never going to sit here in the dark. We're always going to have the lights on. We're always going to have food on the table. And if I don't make the things happen that need to happen and hold myself accountable to those things, then that why doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think tapping into your why, and something that can really help with this is vision boards. Mia's really big on this. We do vision boards and bingo cards every year to kind of put our why in front of us. And I literally have my why sitting right in front of me so I can look at it every day. So I know that's my why, and that can allow me to tap into that deeper sense of accountability so that I can accomplish my why.
Francis, I love. We gotta talk more, Fran. I'm right with you on that, man. That's how my brain works with my family. Is I have a why and a win. I do them both with my circle. There's a reason I'm doing this, and guys, I'm very materialistic. Whether it be a new arcade cabinet, pinball machine, something. It's like those of you in my house. Like I flex all the marvel. Like I'm very annoying like that. And it's like that's kind of like a why in a way, but it's also a win. Not only this is why I'm doing it. This is when I'm getting it by. And it's like, that has always been powerful for me, where it's like, I have a deadline. I am buying my next house this way. I am having this money to put down investment by this date. I am having yada, yada, yada. So I love that. I can internally motivate myself at a pretty high level. I would consider compared to like an American average, but it burns out fast. And I need that external motivation when it's an extended period of time. You know what I mean? So my external motivation is my kids and the people that kind of rely on me to make it happen. They motivate me more than I can ever really motivate myself for longevity, So, but yeah, I think I'm very similar. I want to have a strong why, and I need to have the other W, which is like when. When am I making this happen by? Because I think, Aaron, it's kind of like what you were saying. A dream without a deadline is going to become a nightmare. It's just a matter of time, So that's a good one. Francis, I loved it. We're actually going to talk about that with our next question too. So Francis, you might want to kick us off on the next one, but let's get one more person's response. Tony, we haven't heard from you. Talk to me. Give me a digging deep.
I was going to say also, having a why is important because having when I was ever on slumps during my career, it was only because my vision was a little bit cloudy. And if you think about what we do, it's all a transfer of belief, right? So if your vision is cloudy, who you're trying to sell your product or service to, their vision is going to be a little bit cloudy as well, So anytime, that's why the why is so important, because as you go throughout the day-to-day and we're working, and you're wondering what you're doing it for, and your energy is going to be low, it naturally transcribes and goes right to your client during your presentation. So anytime that I've ever had a slump during my career, I've checked myself, and checked my energy and flipped a switch, and then the results immediately changed, right? So, I mean, that's why I personally think having a vision and having a why is super, super important. It all really starts like what everyone else was talking about, is having a plan and reverse engineering it from the start, because that's what's going to get you motivated all month long or all week long or however long the contest is going to be, So from personal experience, I think that's why, having a vision or having a why is so, so important.
Well, and I also think you're touching on, a really important concept for digging deep is definition of sales, right? Transfer of energy from one party to the next. So if you don't have the energy, you're literally fundamentally breaking down that definition. So I love that too. Check yourself first. I think is a great conversation. I think that's great, dude. Let's move to the next
conversation to have too, man. It's not an easy conversation.
Never is. You give such good advice to other people and hold them accountable, but when it comes to yourself, you're like, I'll give you a bye. You know what I mean? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree, dude. Let's jump into the next question. We're going to talk about buying because we're kind of talking about whys anyway. So I know it's a cliche when we talk about buying, but as W9s, building franchises, doing things, buying is beyond a cliche. It is a necessity to doing what we do. And beyond that, you guys hear me rant about this in class. Dude, we're not selling cars. We're not selling cell phones. We are literally providing a service on the worst day of a family's life to one of the most vulnerable demographics in America. It's a noble cause. And if you're not bought into helping that while making a ton of money in the process while doing it, what are you looking for? You know what I mean? So I think buy-in is such a crucial to pretty much any career path, but here your buy-in does directly translate to your ROI, your return on that investment. So why is buy-in so important? I mean, specifically to this career path, but more specifically during push months and then when you're going for something big. Why is that buy-in so important? Aaron, you want to kick us off on this one?
Sure, I'd love to.
Go for it.
If you believe in what you do, you're not really going to care if you have to show up at like 8 a.m. and rock it until 10 p.m. for those 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
You can back up all of those sacrifices that we previously talked about that you're making with your why. And what I mean by why is, why do you have this job? Could be to provide for your family. It could be to leave a legacy behind for your family. Give them something that you didn't have. So who on this call thinks that leaving a legacy behind for your family is worth dedicating 14 hours a day for just those 30 days? Mm-hmm. I know I definitely do. Mm-hmm. Anybody disagree with me? It's not worth it? Okay. So I definitely think that it's worth it. Of course, if you guys don't, I don't really think that you care about leaving a legacy behind for your family. If 14 hours a day is really that like strenuous for you. You believing in what you do is going to make those sacrifices so much easier. So you're not going to really have to motivate yourself, above and beyond to show up because you believe in the outcome of what you're doing. So those sacrifices just really don't weigh as much on you.
Mm-hmm. I think there's levels to that buy-in too, right? You buy into the job, you buy into yourself, you buy into the product, you buy into the future. Like you're talking the legacy. I love being able to make the joke with brand new people about, because I tell Addie, my daughter, this all the time, like, Daddy is spending all of his money, dude. I'm not leaving you jack. And she gets like furious about it. She gets the house and she gets my renewals. I love being able to build a legacy where I can make jokes like that to her, even though I'm totally serious. I am literally spending all my money, but she's going to get the renewals, the house. She will get a legacy that's beyond money. It's also the lessons I preach and what I've shown. So I love that. Is the buy-in for me is very similar to yours. Is the legacy I leave is not only financial, but I like when my kids see me like, yeah, the world's probably going to be more difficult for you tomorrow than it is for me today. So seeing how much I'm working and how much I push and what we've had to do to build, because Addie's been here since the beginning, basically. So it's like, I think that's been an important process. Like I consider that part of my legacy as well, is the hard work. So Aaron, I love that. I love that. Who wants to take a stab at that? The buy-in, the importance of it. Jimmy, I know you got something on buy-in, baby. Where's that? How many things you got? 3 or 5 things. Give me the top 5.
I got 10. All right. Number 1. No, but I think buy-in's very important. And it's also, buy-in's important for others as well. Like meaning the relationships. Mia talked about that before, about her son and things like that. And, Matt talked earlier about how we did that big push week for 87,000. I don't know if he remembers this, but first 4 days I blanked of that week. So I was the leader of the office. I wrote
started that week 0 for 9.
Yeah, it was bad. Like
you said, you started Matt 0 for 9. Is how you started it? Dang, boys. Talk about a fourth quarter closeout. Yeah.
So the point is, I was losing by, I was like, oh my goodness, like we're supposed to break this record. We're supposed to do this. And I relied on others that I talked about before the week, like Mia said. So I called them and I was just like, oh my God. And they picked me up. Right. And then we obviously ended up breaking that record. But that's the other thing to remember is like buy in on the systems. Like you see 10 people, 3 are going to say yes. So we understand that, but we forget that 7 are going to say no. So especially some new folks in here, it's not you, it's the numbers. It is what it is, but you got to get to the 10. And then the last thing I would say, number 4 for Andrew, right, would be, guys, what we're doing, who in here has lost somebody they love? Raise your hand. I'm pretty sure everybody's hand just went up, right? Mm-hmm. My mom, my aunt, my uncle, my grandfather, I can name a bunch of people. The products that we give, you have to, there's nothing wrong with selling cars, vacuums, cable, internet, dish, whatever. There's nothing wrong with selling any of that. But the products, when we have a push month, think about the end result. We're blanketing the community with more insurance products than it had before. So on that family's worst day, their loved ones are going to have some money to figure life out. And money doesn't solve everything, but if you've ever lost anybody, it makes it a little bit easier just to figure out what the hell to do next. right? So at the end of the day, when we're pushing, yes, as a byproduct, we win all these prizes, we make a lot of money, but we're also like helping real blue collar workers out with a product that they really need. They don't really need a lot of the stuff that they buy. They really need the product that we have, right? So there's also buy-in there. Andrew, I remember the first time, I'm pretty sure we pay out what you would know, 400,000 or 500,000 a month in claims. Just your agency, just this month, we're paying $400,000 or $500,000 out in death claims. Think about that for a minute, guys. So what's your buy-in there? We're not just like selling anything. We're selling a real product that really benefits families. So,
and can I also, like Jimmy, when you peel that back, that's obviously some of the book of business prior to us, but no joke, like 80 to 85% of that payout is our tenor. That's only the last 4 years of written business, as in people that we just wrote 4 years ago and they're passing away prematurely. It's a wild thing to think about. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Guys, just so you know, the inside joke about the list that me and Jimmy are talking about, when I came from corporate, Paul, you guys probably remember this, all my CEs were like, number 1, number 2, and I would just list things out. So
it's always been that way, even before corporate.
So,
never changing. Never
that's
changing.
that's the joke there. Anyway,
I want to chime in on the buy-in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I wanted to just say 2 things real quick. One, you definitely have to sell yourself on what you're doing, sell yourself on why you're doing it, sell yourself on the products and the systems and everything like that. Like I would say, and I've tell this to my team all the time, if you don't have one product, like how can you say you're telling these families you believe in this, you believe in the freedom of choice, you believe in the A71, get paid, like this is so good for them, but you don't have it, you don't have one thing, like, put yourself in a position where you're not speaking lies. Like I would say that, because energetically you're selling something that you don't even have yourself. So get something. I don't care if it's a cancer plan, A71, get something, right? If you really believe in it. I just think that that's important spiritually, energetically. The last thing I want to say, because Aaron triggered this, is I made a trust yesterday, and my beneficiaries of my trust is all the surviving offsprings of myself and my 3 brothers. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. So I'm about to stop talking because my team know I don't do that. Right. But to be able to visualize what the potential of all the things that I'm going to be able to leave them, the assets, the business, the legacy, the all the things, the money for my children and my nieces and nephews. I made a trust for that. Like, that's blowing my mind that I did that. Okay. So like understand that maybe you're not where you want to be, but the vision you have for your life is possible if you buy in right now and do the things right now that is necessary.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, the living will and trust is a process, huh? You have to really, it's kind of, hopefully a lot of you guys have done it, but it is interesting to see, and it is kind of complementary towards your buy-in or your belief in yourself. It's like seeing what you actually are worth, what you can leave behind, and the impact you're going to leave after you're gone. I don't believe that's a very common experience for a lot of people. So it's kind of a cool thing to be able to take care of. All right, we got 10 minutes. This last question I do want to hear from all of you because I think it's important. It's the last question I sent you guys. I believe that if you want to learn how to win, you got to learn how to lose. And being a good loser, like I hate saying good loser, but being a good loser is an important skill set. As in handling successes, handling victories, it's very easy. It's the failures and the losses that can get kind of tough. But we all know that the failures and the losses is where the lessons are, where the experience comes from, where's like the grit and the resilience is bred. So there's not going to be I think everyone's going to win during these contest months, but there's going to be some people that feel like they didn't win, they whatever. So what are some of the healthiest or most productive ways to look at failures, knowing that, Jimmy, to piggyback off what you're saying, we give 10 presentations, we're getting 7 no's for every 3 yeses. You're going to get more rejection than you are approval anyway. How can we learn how to turn this view of failures and letdowns or whatever into like what they actually are, which is the critical piece of growth, how we process this to make sure we use it as a fertilizer to our professionalism and our brainwaves, if that kind of makes sense? What are some ideas, tactics, whatever, to help new people to become productive with failure? Understand that failure is necessary and how you want to process that so that you better yourself here in the future. Does that make sense? How I'm asking that? Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to kick that off? I know it's kind of a longer question. Matt, go for it, dude.
So I think the biggest thing is just understanding what a no is. And, I know Jimmy's been here for 13 years. Anthony's been here for 8. Mia, I apologize. You're here 15 years?
11. She's been here 11.
11.
There's people on the screen where, and a lot of people that, on this call, they've gotten told no more than you probably ever will in your life. And that just doesn't stop as an agent. It stops as a manager, it continues as a manager, continues as a director. This job is the word no in different shapes and forms. And the most important thing is to understand what's being said no to. One of the things with newer agents is they kind of internalize it, or they kind of feel like they're being rejected. That you're being told no for you, where sometimes it's just, maybe the product isn't a good fit, or maybe, it's just something where they just don't have the same vision about what's important for their family. But when you internalize it and make it personal and feel like you're personally being rejected, that's when you start to carry it with you. And so the biggest thing is that every time you get a no, analyze it, learn what you could do better, learn what you contributed to contribute to that no, but also understand that they're not rejecting you. They may have rejected the product or something like that. But as far as, they sat with you for an hour. They sat with you for an hour and a half. Clearly, they didn't reject you. You sat and connected with them. They asked you to go see their brother or go see their uncle. So they didn't reject you. But when you make it personal like that, it gets very heavy.
Mm-hmm. I think I love that, dude. Kind of like the difference between your feelings and your mind. Your feelings, you like internalize it and feel like it's a personal attack. Your mind is like, okay, how can I actually get something out of this? How can I improve this situation? What can I learn in the future to not face this? You want to be more focused on your mind, not your feelings. I love that, dude. It's really good. Who wants to go next? Francis, come on, throw that hand up, dude. What is this? What is this? Way up there, man. Come on, go for it.
So the first, you've probably heard the saying, turn those L's into lessons, right? But one of my favorites is FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. So if you failed, you need to look at it to have a healthy mindset about it, like Andrew's talking about, as your first attempt at learning something. Especially when you're first starting out in this business, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and every no is one step closer to a yes. Because if you lean into the system and you understand the numbers, like we said, 1 to 3 are going to buy. We know we're going to get all the no's. But not only that, you're going to learn something every time you get a no. What could you have done differently? And what could you have done differently so that you could get the yes, right? So first attempt in learning. It wasn't a failure. Don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as your first attempt at trying something new. So I just really love that saying, especially for new people, first attempt in learning, FAIL. It's going to get you closer to those yeses, because you are always going to learn something when you hear a no. Maybe I didn't tailor it to their needs. Maybe I didn't really listen to what they had to say. And it gives you the opportunity to go back. And that's why, we're on Mia's team, we're such a big proponent of recording all of our presentations. So we can look back on those failures and we can see exactly what we need to tweak so that we can get closer to those yeses.
I love it, dude. Yeah, whenever I hear an acronym, I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm the only person going through this, because if people have made an acronym for this experience, clearly there's a lot of people going through this, right? So the fact that it's a good acronym means yeah, man, you're not alone. It's just part of life. Okay, so very good. I love it. Who's up next? Talk to me.
That was going to be interesting. You said that, Andrew. I just bought this book. I have yet to read it, but it's John Maxwell, Failing Forward.
That's a great book.
Maybe if I read it, I would have a really cool answer for this call, but they literally write books about it, right? You think about all of the cool stories are all about failures and bouncing back. You don't really hear
what
about
Hollywood is literally based off of, all the movies we love and watches. Yeah.
And just recently, I don't know if you guys know about Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. He had no offers in college, nobody at all. And now he just lost, but he almost went to the Super Bowl. And he was quoted by saying, "I just wanted to prove all those colleges wrong for not picking me." Guys, it's not just us. We're not alone when we have many failures, but I live and die by this. Event plus response equals outcome. You guys have heard it before. You're going to have an event what your response is to that event is going to equal the outcome. You're not alone in it, but what you decide to do with that event is going to determine the outcome. So keep it short and sweet for some.
Ooh, Addison, you guys, if that's the article, if that's the story, I think it is. That's a great read right there too.
That's the KFC guy.
Yeah. It's the, that was probably a year. I read that a while back, and that's a really good one right there. If it's the same thing that I read. So that's a good one you guys could take in. But yeah, Jimmy, I love it, dude. I feel the same way. Talk to me. Who else?
Jimmy kind of stole my thunder a little bit. Kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I was literally just about to say there's a book by John Maxwell saying failing forward. And that's really how you should think about failing. Because like when you fail, you know, there's obviously something you can learn if you're conscious of it, right? Like if you're actually conscious of it, then you're going to be able to learn something from it. Because if you're not, then it does seem like it's a loss or it does seem like it's a failure. So if you're conscious of something to be able to pull as a lesson and move it forward, these things stack over time. You know, when you get 1% better every day and you learn 1% off of each failure, like Matt said, every single one of us on the screen just failed a million times or got told no a million times. And those compound over time. And over time, you get 1,000% better, you know? So when you look at failure, you got to look at failure like you're failing forward. You're learning from something so you don't make those same quote unquote failures, you know, in the future. But at the end of the day, you're 1,000% better when you fail 1,000 times. You know, if you look at it in that type of mindset and that type of perspective, you know, I don't know if that's what the book talks about because I never read the book either. You know, I just like the title, you know, but but no, for sure. That's honestly how I think about it because, you know, if you like if you're in the gym, right? I work out a lot, you know, and you go until failure, right? Like that's what you say when you're building muscle in the gym, right? So like you should go until failure. Like you should go to fail, you know, and that might be kind of crazy to say, like you should go out there and fail, but like at the end of the day, like if you're going out there and succeeding all the time, you're probably not going hard enough. You could probably do more, you know? So that's my perspective on, you know, handling success, but also handling failure.
And we touch on two things I love. We do talk like it's like biologically built into nature, man. Like when you I think it was Mike Tyson, Tony, you might know, it's I think his whole quote was like when he's counting reps, he waits until the burn to start or his muscles to start failing, then he starts counting the reps. I think that was Tyson. Might have been Ali. It was one of the boxers. And that kind of mindset of it's like, yeah, man, pushing yourself to failure. Why do you guys think I love Goku? Like, I mean, once again, I know it's kind of people make fun of it, but it's like that's literally the story of Goku. It's like he always gets his ass kicked, and it's right before that he completely gives up, something big happens. And you touched on something else and guys, this is my life experience and journey. Failure is, a lot of people look at it like a black and white. Failure for me in my life has been so crucial for the way I've evolved as a person. Like when I fail, it has pushed my mind to find many avenues to approach the same success. As in a lot of people, they feel failure is like this one way, it's black and white. For me, when failure happens to me, quote unquote, I always put quotes around failure, it makes my brain evaluate the situation from like 50 different angles. And there's always other angles that no one else looked at it that way. And without that failure, I would have done the black and white like everybody else does. And I will stand by this statement. To make real good money, it's more profitable to be different than it is better. If you can stand out, be different, have whatever, you can keep up with the best of the best in whatever venture it is. Stand out, dude. And I feel like the people that stand out the most are the ones that evaluate failure and they find a different spin on it because we know that everybody else is going to process it that way. And that's what I feel like it's really helped with me. So Anthony, you kind of sparked that in me, those thoughts. So I think that's a great answer. We're missing somebody. Isn't there one for Jimmy? No, Jimmy, Mia, did you go on failure? Aaron, did you go?
Neither of us have.
Okay.
My coach used to tell me this all the time. So for a little comic relief, grab a straw and suck it up. That's not my answer though. I just feel like that would resonate with a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
But this is a phenomenal question. I love answering questions like this because I've grown up my entire life in sports. Every time I lose, although it may suck in the moment, I'm always giddy because I know exactly what I need to do to win the next time. So when I used to watch film back in college when I played lacrosse, sometimes it could be as simple as like not opening my hips fast enough or not perfectly mirroring the stick of the other girl. And it could be something so small that could have created a connection of plays that ended in a goal.
Yep.
That goal could have made the difference between us winning or losing, but of course I don't carry the entire weight of the team on my shoulders. I'm not the only reason that we lost that game. But now I know what I can fix to make sure that we do win the next one, or do everything I can to make sure that we win. So with that being said, I know Francis touched on this earlier, but the entire Panthers squad has film. We record every single presentation that we do. This way managers can look back and give critiques one-on-one, or even you can go back and self-critique and realize, wow, if I'd have just said, who's next? Instead of, do you have anybody else that you'd like to sponsor? I could have gotten like 5, 10 more referrals out of that household. And those more referrals could have got me another sale, 2 sales, and I could have won that week. So understanding that loss is a way for you to gain something is the best way to make sure that you're turning something that's against you into your advantage.
E plus R equals O, dude. The self-reflection, right? Without the failure, you don't do that self-reflection. I think that's spectacular. And I also want to piggyback on, yeah, dude, success is usually a combination of a bunch of little things together, aggregation of marginal gains, not these big concepts that everyone thinks it is. So it's perfect. Jimmy, I know you and your squad, you got a phone session starting, go for it. But Mia, could you close us out with yours? Is that
Yeah,
cool?
absolutely.
So everyone, let's thank Jimmy. Bye. Okay, bye, Jimmy. Jeez, dude. You're really mad. Later, Tony. I know you guys gonna go.
East Coast too. We got phone sessions.
Hey, guys,
But
Mia, come
I'm
on. What's out, baby? Come on, failure, right?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to bring this East Coast mentality with what Jimmy and I and our squads are bringing to you guys. It's really like I think about the Mamba mentality, right?
Mhm.
It's got who have it. You gotta like you gotta brainwash yourself to have a mentality like that. Like I'm a sore loser. I don't like losing. I do not. I'm very very competitive. But at the same time, I'm not gonna roll around in the floor and soak on my losses. I'm not going to do that. That's wasting too much time. I'm just like what Aaron said. I'm very solution oriented. I'm correcting immediately. I was exposed to some data earlier. And as I was exposed to that data, all I was thinking about is what's the solution? What's the solution? What's the solution? Because I have a winning mentality. So failing actually doesn't mean like you're a failure or anything like that. It's people who have a winning mentality and winners, it is the failures that makes them winners, if that makes sense.
That mama mentality, guys. If you haven't read about Kobe Bryant's mentality, it's such a perfect way to look at it. The core that I always take away from his talks when he talks about it, he was never the tallest. He didn't have the biggest hands. He wasn't the fastest. And that was actually his advantage because he had to work at it. What to Aaron saying, self-reflect on that, make those little tweaks. And since he built that winning, studious mindset, he ran laps around everyone who had talent because that talent became a limitation where all they did was rely on it while he was studying and getting the job done every single day and improving his skill set. It's so essential to look at failure like what Mia's saying. That's your playbook, dude. That's your playbook. And a real winner mindset is there. How do I fix that? How do I, that's the universe showing me like there's a skill or whatever I got to learn to conquer that next time. So I think that's a great way to close out. So Aaron, Francis, Mia, thank you guys so much for doing this, guys. I know I kind of dropped it on you, but with the contest coming in, I was hoping we get some East Coast intensity and tenacity to kick it off. So appreciate you guys stepping up. Aaron, Francis, Mia, awesome answers, guys. Appreciate you. Guys, just so you know, we have the YouTube channel. We're going to put this on the YouTube channel. We'll clip it up and do like the full thing if you want to rewatch it. And then also Aaron, Francis, Mia, I don't want to speak for you guys, but if you guys love what you heard, which I know you did, these ladies are always available for a little talk, for some advice, tactics, whatever you need.
Yep.
Takes a village to raise an agent, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys, this is all we got for today. Remember, tomorrow we got that huddle, and end of month is tomorrow as well. So this link, 2 p.m. Pacific for the huddle, and then we have until about 1 p.m. Pacific to submit business for end of month. All right, guys, you're good to go.
Thanks.